A very brief introduction. I'm Kate Terry, as you heard, COO and co-founder of Surround, and I want to point out that my co-founder Jay is here. Jay Grayson, our CEO. Yeah, a very supportive ally. Cool. So let me jump back career-wise and tell you a bit about how I came to be here. Grew up in the Boston area, went to Harvard undergrad, much to my parents' dismay, studied Welsh medieval history. I took 3 years of medieval Welsh. I'm still waiting for the opportunity to use that in the insurtech space. Basilius, if something comes up, let me know. Went to Europe on a random chance when somebody hired me, and did management consulting in Barcelona and then in London for 4 years. Came back to the US to go to business school, went to HBS. Would love to say that I wanted to work in the insurance industry my entire life. That would be a lie. What actually happened was that I was looking to move from professional services to a general management role, and as I started exploring, I realized that I was really interested in working on products that weren't physical products. I wasn't particularly interested in figuring out what color plastic we should use for something, but I liked the dynamic of kind of consumers and figuring out what people wanted to buy. And it just turned out that Progressive Insurance had a series of interviews that were kind of in an off-campus location just after a bunch of other interviews I had, which were not in the insurance space. And I went and I interviewed with a guy from Progressive, and he made insurance sound so fascinating. It was not really an industry I'd ever considered before, but I mean, life is inherently unfair, right? And the insurance industry is really about making life more fair. Terrible things happen in the world we can't control. Who's gonna get in an accident on the road tonight? Who might have a house fire, but we can put them back together when it happens, right? It's real and it's good, and I know that nobody likes insurance, but it actually serves a really important societal purpose. Everybody I've met in insurance finds that to be kind of a mission and to be real, right? So there was that. But then insurance has some of the original big data, right? Like millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of rows of badly organized, sometimes messed up data, right? But you can do fascinating things with that data. So it was kind of this quantitative and combination of kind of quantitative work and people that made it really interesting to me. So I figured I'll do a few years of Progressive and then I'll go do something else, right? That was 15 years ago. Here I am. I spent 3 or 4 years at Progressive as a product manager, so fresh out of business school, knowing nothing about insurance whatsoever. They put me in charge of 4 states in the Southeast and said, you have profit and loss responsibility, better make some money. One of those states was Louisiana, right after Hurricane Katrina. That was a learning experience, right? It was amazing. 2 years later, you go down and there's still rubble in the streets, right? It was really horrifying. But it was an opportunity to learn, and it was an environment in which you could make mistakes, and as long as you fixed them, you were actually applauded for that, right? Because that's how we learn. Progressive is an amazing place to work. Boston is home. I wanted to come home. I actually worked in this building after that for Plymouth Rock. I spent about 14 months when the Massachusetts auto insurance market was deregulating. So it used to be that the state set the rates, really unusual structure for personal lines. Deregulation happened about 10 years ago. So the Massachusetts product manager led the build for that product. Had a great time. But both Progressive and Plymouth Rock are largely private passenger auto. Liberty Mutual came calling, quite literally. And I went over because Liberty has a much broader array of opportunities, many more lines of business, broader geographic reach. Was a great opportunity. I moved over in a lateral role, had a role called Director of State Operations for kind of a hot minute, maybe 6 months or so. Had a bunch of states in the Pacific Northwest, got to know a lot of regulators. That was neat. And then had the opportunity to move from personal lines, where all my career experience had been, to commercial lines, which felt like moving to a completely different industry. It was like the same acronyms, but they meant something different. It was bizarre how different it was. And there's not really that much movement back and forth. So that was a great learning experience. I spent 6 years in commercial lines as an SVP that entire time, so it was also a big promotion. Had profit and loss responsibility for the commercial auto book, which was a $500 million book of business at the time. Did some really interesting data things about big trucks and everything else, which was neat. Moved over to a role called Product Operations, where I had a number of teams reporting to me, but one was the PhD statisticians and actuaries who built all of the pricing models for all of Liberty's commercial lines, which was fascinating. So we were beginning to use machine learning. We were hiring people away from Google. I was trying to explain to senior management at a $45 billion company why we needed to use random forests and everything else, which was just a really interesting dynamic. But it also got to the point for me where I felt like we were trying to improve the existing processes by this much, because a 0.1% lift was worth millions of dollars of profit, right? And there is nothing wrong with making those 0.1% improvements. But at some point, you've fixed all the trees and you haven't even noticed that the forest is actually moving, right? So I kind of wanted to do something else. I thought about it for a long while, did a bunch of research and informational interviews, explored other roles within Liberty, and decided to leave. I left, and I actually did two things simultaneously. I went back to school in an area that I was interested in. I am partway through a master's degree that we'll see. I've heard that being a dropout is actually really good for entrepreneurial career. That may be the case. But that was in nutrition, and then I simultaneously started a small consulting firm where I did two kinds of work. I did product innovation work for insurance carriers, and then it turned out that there was this growing community of investors who wanted to invest in the insurtech space, and that they didn't know anything about insurance, and that they were willing to pay outrageous hourly rates to have somebody tell them how insurance works. And I really liked that work. It was easy, it required no prep, and I got to use really big insurance words like retrocession. It was good. So that's what I was doing for a couple of years after I left Liberty. And then one day I got a call from somebody that many of you know, because they're familiar faces in the audience, Kristen Bissett, who was the chief actuary of the commercial group when I was there at Liberty. And she said, "You must know this guy, Jay Grayson, right? He was a peer of ours at Liberty." I was like, "No, never heard of him before." Which says something about how big insurance companies are, right? And how floated the executive ranks can become. And she said, "Well, he's got this idea for a startup. And he's got a corporate finance and customer experience background. He's looking for someone who can do some product management consulting. Do you think you'd be interested?" I thought, why not? I hadn't really intended to work with startups, but why not? So I met Jay, and he talked to me about Surround, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what we're doing in a moment. But it just seemed like a really good idea. It was the forest, right? The way things are moving, the way the world is changing. It's all the things that I wanted to do at Liberty, and we just couldn't because we had these old systems, right? We had these established, large, profitable books of business that it's terrifying to touch, right? Because it's not economically rational to do so. So I did some consulting for him, and then he was kind of like, "So I need a co-founder, and we have complementary skills. Would you like to join me?" And I said, "Well, I'm not sure." So there were two things that I was concerned about, which are things that I think are really important in this industry. One was that this is a highly regulated industry, right? It's regulated on a state-by-state basis. You have to get your product and your pricing approved in every state that you want to sell in. Regulatory management had been a piece of my work in product management, but it wasn't clear to me that what we were trying to do was something that would be applauded and supported by the regulators. And a lack of actual support can lead itself to 18 or 24 months of ongoing conversations with the Department of Insurance that just go nowhere. So I said, let's go visit some regulators. Oh, and by the way, working with somebody closely in a startup means spending a lot of time with them. Some of these regulators are not in great spots. Let's do a road trip and see how it goes. And I remember saying to my husband, if anybody gets left in the cornfields of Illinois, then I'm not signing any of the paperwork. Just sign on as a co-founder. So we did two things. We visited some departments of insurance and got a lot of really positive support for our ideas. And we made it all the way from Springfield, Illinois to St. Louis. Both of us still in the car at the end of the trip, right? So yeah. So that's how I came to be Surround's co-founder. That was June of last year. So it's been a little bit over a year. And we're moving rapidly towards getting to market later this year. So let me tell you just a little bit about the idea and what we're doing, and then we'll shift into a conversation with Jonathan. All right. So we've taglined this the starter pack for your life, right? One of the things that's changed about the world in general, and Vasilios had kind of mentioned some of the changes in the economy that are going on, but insurance used to be a coming-of-age product. You would buy your first car, right? And so you'd buy an auto insurance policy. Or not very long after you graduated from college, maybe you'd get married or partner up, you'd buy a condo or a home, you'd buy a homeowner's policy or renter's policy, one of these. But modern consumers are delaying or in some cases opting out of those purchases altogether, right? So those coming-of-age moments don't exist, but these people are still building lives and careers, sometimes into their 40s, right? Living in urban areas, renting, driving a shared vehicle, their roommate's vehicle, a zip car, rental cars, etc. They're exposed to all the same risks, but there's no easy on-ramp to insurance. So that's what we're building. It's a property and casualty product that's sort of your starter pack. We think of the world as sort of move, work, live. If you think about insurance, you think about the kinds of insurance that you hear a lot about. It's health insurance, auto insurance, homeowners insurance. This is all insurance that has to do mostly with things or with predefined categories, right? But the reason that insurance is set up that way is largely a long list of court cases, which we can talk about in great length, but I'll save you for the moment. And then also because that's how insurance has just been sold, right? So once you start selling auto insurance, you have a system to sell auto insurance, and then you've got COBOL programming under the hood, and then there's data to support this, and there's coverage language, and it's kind of impossible to get out of that, right? Sometimes you don't even know if a customer has both an auto and a home policy, let alone a life policy, let alone a commercial policy. It's just nearly impossible in a massive corporation to tie that all together really, really well, right? So we kind of think about it as you work, live, and move, and we've got one product that covers you for all of those. So it's a super simple starter pack of insurance. It's flat priced at $50 a month. For those who are from the insurance industry, it feels like an umbrella, super simple, super easy, super transparent, covers you for all your most common risks. Then we allow our customers to connect to their favorite sharing economy services that allows us to perfect the coverage that we offer to them and offer them in-the-moment advice and discounts. Then finally, because we have much better data than in the past from second and third party sources, we act almost like software as a service, right? Where you've got this base pack, and then we use the data we have to offer you perfectly designed products, whether they're our own or redistributed, at the perfect life moment. So I'll give you an example. If you have a renter's insurance policy, and then you buy a condo, right? With most insurance companies, you actually have to cancel the renter's insurance policy to buy a condo insurance policy. Makes sense, because that's how the world works, right? Except that 85% of the language is exactly identical between the two. There's no reason for a shopping moment, right? All you need is a little bit of information to purchase the condo to enhance the coverage to cover the condo itself as well, right? That sort of thing doesn't meet with modern customer expectations, and that's what we're trying to fix. So in terms of momentum, we're going to talk a little bit more about fundraising and building a team and all of that good stuff in just a moment, but we've raised just about $1 million. We're heading towards launch late this year. We're a team of 10 people. Most of them are technologists, right? This is an insurtech space. We've picked product and pricing, and we're fully licensed as well, so we're kind of on this drumbeat of an uphill movement towards market.